So welcome you for the today's discussion of hydrology and irrigation engineering. Myself Vishwanath Avuti, and we'll see that today's main discussion. The main discussion is about system of irrigation. So we are discussing it is a system of irrigation. So in this we are discussing about surface and groundwater sources, flow irrigation, lift irrigation, Bandara irrigation, important questions, right? We'll discuss one by one. First, surface and groundwater, right? Here we have to understand the source of water for irrigation. So we have surface water and groundwater, right? So here, if I consider surface water used for irrigation, it is almost 62% of irrigation water, right? We know what we mean by irrigation. Irrigation is the artificial supply of water to the crop. So in that irrigation, if you see 62% of irrigation area is supplied by almost 62% of area is supplied by surface water irrigation. And source of surface water is rivers, lake and aquifer springs, right? So the water which comes from aquifer to nearby rivers, and even we are getting water from is from the groundwater source, right? And if you see groundwater used for irrigation, it is almost 38%. 38% of irrigated area is covered under a groundwater use, right? And if you see the total amount of groundwater, so 67% of groundwater resource or exploration used for irrigation purpose, and it is according to Food and Agriculture Organization. Food and Agriculture Organization is a unit of United Nations, right, which is a very well-known organization which controls, which has a aim of removing the hungerness of the country, right? So next we will go for to study system of irrigation. So here types of irrigation, and many types of irrigations are there, but mainly it is flow irrigation and lift irrigation, right? And we will see what we mean by flow irrigation and lift irrigation. So as I told, it is a flow chart, and the irrigation is divided into mainly two parts. One is flow irrigation and lift irrigation. And lift irrigation is also known as well irrigation, right? Well means lift mainly it is using when water level is lower than the irrigation area. Then we are using the pump. Then from the pump we are taking it to high head area. And again, flow irrigation is divided into two: perennial irrigation, inundation irrigation. Again, flow irrigation is depending on the type, the scheme. It is divided into direct irrigation, storage irrigation, combined irrigation. It is also division of flow irrigation based on some condition. Next we'll go for flow irrigation. What do you mean by flow irrigation and why it got named as a flow irrigation, right? So flow irrigation is that type of irrigation in which supply of irrigation water available is at a level that it is conveyed onto the land by gravity flow. So in general, flow irrigation means the water at the source is available at the same level of irrigation land. Means the water can easily flow to irrigation land by gravity flow, right? There is no use of external source to supply the water, right? Flow irrigation is that type of irrigation in which supply of irrigation water available is at such a level that it is conveyed onto the land by gravity flow, and without any source of external energy. Next, again it is divided into perennial irrigation system and inundation irrigation system, or inundation irrigation is also called as flood irrigation system. So means here by the name only you can understand perennial irrigation system, and inundation means water is made inundate means stand, or it's like a flood irrigation, right? And here you can see in the image there is a storage of water, correct, and the upstream of the dam, correct. It is an animated figure, right? Here you can see storage of water in the upstream, right? So here you can see in the image, it is what flow irrigation means. The water is released through the sluice gate and it is supplied to the canal. Again in the canal there is a diversion structure or managing gate. Again it is supplied to secondary canal. It's the main canal, and these are the distributary canals, means water is flowing through the gravity flow. Similarly, here we have a, see here you can have jack well, right, where it is a pumping house. Even you can say it is a pumping house, and water is pumped and it is supplied through pipe to the higher elevation, right. So it is called as a lift irrigation or well irrigation. Next we will go for uh, uh, type of flow irrigation. It is a perennial irrigation. So by the name perennial means the water is available throughout the crop period, right. So you will see perennial irrigation system, the water required for irrigation is supplied in accordance with the crop requirement. See, water is supplied in accordance with the crop requirement throughout the crop period. So here it is, why it is called as perennial irrigation, because the water is supplied in accordance with the crop requirements throughout the crop period. So we have a from seeding time to harvesting time, right. In between it requires some some water up to the wilting point. Wilting point means there is, even the water is available but crop is not ready to take the water, that is a wilting point, right. Up to harvesting water has to be supplied, and that water is supplied continuously how much it is required. That's what is called as perennial, up to the complete throughout the crop period. For such a system, therefore, some storage headwork such as small dam, storage weir, barrage are required. So to do this, as we require small dams like a check dam, barrage, weir are required to store the excess water during the flood and to release to the crop as when it required. I mean, whenever we are getting more rainfall, that rainfall is stored in a storage area like a earthen dam, barrage, weir, right? So then the water is supplied to the crop land whenever it is required. Next is inundation irrigation, or it is a flood irrigation. For example, it is like a paddy agriculture. When you seen paddy agriculture, right? Before planting the crop, it has made inundation or flood. So then after that, yeah, plantation is made in a water. So here it is same, almost same inundation irrigation. Inundation irrigation is carried out by deep flooding throughout the saturation of the land. So here it is what flooding is made, deep flooding is made throughout the saturation of the land to be cultivated, is then drained off prior to the planting of the crop. So here water is made inundate on the agriculture land, and whenever it is water is not required, it made to drain away from that area, right. It is what inundation irrigation, right. It is what two types of flow irrigation. Again, flow irrigation is divided depending upon the source from which water is drawn. Flow irrigation can further be subdivided into three types. So again, it is divided based on source from which source source from which water is drawn, right. So first one is direct irrigation, or it is river canal irrigation, or it is also called as diversion scheme, right. All are same. Direct irrigation, it is also called as river canal irrigation and diversion scheme. You will see one by one with the pictures or images. Then storage irrigation, it is also called as reservoir or tank irrigation and storage scheme. Next we have last one, combined storage and diversion scheme. So first one is direct scheme, second one is storage irrigation, and it one is a combined of direct irrigation and storage irrigation. So we'll see what we mean by direct irrigation or river canal irrigation. In this direct irrigation system, water is directly diverted to the canal. So what is very important, directly diverted to the canal means water is directly diverted into canal without attempting to store the water. Very important it is. See what you mean by direct scheme, right? In this direct scheme, the water is directly diverted to the canal without attempting to store the water. There is no storage of water. How much flow is there in the river? Same water is supplied through canal by diverting structure. For such a system, low diversion weir or diversion barrage is constructed across the river. For this, what we require? Low diversion weir or diversion barrage is required, right, on the across the river. This rise the water level in the river. So what is the purpose of providing the diversion weir? It is to rise the water level in the river, and after rising the water level in the river, the water can easily flow by gravity. That's what the construction of diversion work is required. And we'll see with the image. So here I have taken one of the satellite image. You can see here it is a river, right? So then actually it is a upstream area. It is a upstream area, storage area, and water has to flow to the downstream area. But here there is a construction of diversion work, a small barrage, or you can call weir. And what the purpose of this construction of diversion work? Because the water level in the downstream is lower than the canal, correct? And how to get a gravity flow? Because flow irrigation means water has to flow with a gravity. Then the barrage is constructed, and from this water level is raised from lower level to higher level. Then after raising the water, it will be supplied to the canal with the gates, and you can see here it is water is diverted from here to here, right? It is what called a diversion scheme, or it is direct direct irrigation. You can see it is a river here, and water is coming like this, and due to the rising of water is diverting towards the canal, right? So it is what flow. So if it without diversion structure, then water will flow towards the downstream, correct? So that's what diversion work is completed. And generally direct irrigation scheme is of smaller magnitude. So it is a smaller magnitude. It is not a bigger irrigation scheme. It is a minor irrigation scheme, since there are no rigid control over the supplies. There is no control over the supplies, right? And one or two main canal may be taken off directly from the river. So here you can see line diagram. It is a river upstream area, and diversion work like a barrage is constructed. Then water is supplied through canal, right? Here two canals are there, right bank canal and left bank canal, and water is supplied through canal for irrigation. And in between, if you require any drainage, then CDW work is constructed, cross drainage work is constructed across the canal like aqueduct, right? Because natural drainage is lower than the canal level, so a bridge like structure is constructed to avoid the water losses, right? So whenever it is a required of diversion work, drainage work, then the proper arrangement has been made, right? Then cross drainage work are constructed whenever natural drain or distributary streams crosses the canal. Whenever there is a natural drains or some other like no distributary canals, then cross drainage work is be constructed. We'll see next storage irrigation or tank irrigation. The difference between storage irrigation and direct irrigation is, so here in the direct irrigation what we made, without storing the water has to be supplied to diversion work. But here water is stored on the upstream area, right? Here it is a upstream area, because here it is a small dam, right? Here you can see small dam, and water is stored in the upstream area, right? Upstream area, water is stored in upstream area, right? So then after storing, it will create some storage area. You can see here it is storage of water, right? It is a storage of water. It's a storage area in the upstream, and this stored water is released with a regulatory method like a sluice gate, and water is released to both the canals, right bank canal and left bank canal. And due to the storage of water, it is called as storage irrigation. So why storage irrigation is preferred? Because we don't know, all the rivers are not perennial rivers, and to supply the water to the crop for complete growth, right, different stage of water we have to supply, means it at least it required 2 to 3 months of water supply to the crop. So due to the non availability, whenever it is required, water storage is required, right? So for example, perennial irrigation. In the perennial irrigation, water has to be supplied for complete growth of crop. In that, storage water is required. So here water is stored, and that stored water is supplied through canal to farmland, agriculture land. So here it is a main canal, and from this canal again distributory canals will be there, and tertiary canals will be there, and the tertiary canals will be supplied water to the agriculture land, right? And here solid barrage or dam is constructed, right? In a storage irrigation system, solid barrage or such as dam or storage weir is constructed across the river. The water is stored in a reservoir or and stored in a reservoir or lake so formed, right? Due to the water storage, you will get a reservoir of water or lake kind of formation. Right here, depending upon the water requirement of the crop or hydroelectricity power generation and upon the flow of water in the river. So based on water requirement of the crop, right? So depending on which type of crop, right? If it is a sugar cane, based on the sugar cane area, right? So you can call it as a sugar belt areas, right? That water requirement of the crop, or it depends on the hydroelectric power generation, and even depends on flow of water in the river. These three factors will be considered, and based on this, what the height of the dam is then decided. Based on this, height of the dam is decided, and from that storage volume, and based on that we will calculate the storage volume required, right? So main factor are crop water requirement and hydroelectric generation and flow in the river. So based on that, we'll get to know how much volume of water is required to store, and based on that, height will be decided. And due to height decide, right? So it stores the water in a volumetric stage. And if you see, most of the work in India, irrigation work in India, all falls under this category, right? It is what storage irrigation. Storage irrigation scheme is comparatively bigger magnitude, involves much more expenditure than the direct irrigation. If you get a difference, if you get a questions like a difference between, make a difference between direct irrigation and storage irrigation, then you can write, right? Direct irrigation is a smaller magnitude, and storage irrigation is a bigger magnitude, and cost required or expenditure is more in storage irrigation and expenditure less in direct irrigation. One or two main canals takes off from the reservoir. Here also left bank canal or right bank canals are given, or even sometime only one canal will be there to carry the water to the agriculture land. Due to the formation of reservoir, some land property may be submerged. So here, due to the storage of water, some of the agriculture land on the upstream area of the river will be submerged, right, to the upstream of the dam. The network of canal system convey water to the agriculture field through the various regulatory work, right? So then we'll go for last one, combined system combined system or storage cum diversion scheme, right? So here we have seen that in the storage irrigation system, water is stored in the reservoir since the river is not perennial, right? So here water is stored when a river is not perennial, right? While in the direct irrigation scheme, the river is, so here you can see, first here it is a river, here it is a river, correct? So what they did, first water will be stored. So it is what, water store come diversion. Water will be stored, right, in the basin, not in the basin, in the storage area. Then it depends on the, for example, if it is a hydropower generation, then water is supplied for power generation, right? So then after using for power generation, hydroelectric generation, the water again collected to the river, and then again there is a construction of weir. Why this weir is constructed is like acts like a diversion, and water level in the river is raised, then water is supplied to canals, and through canals it will supplied for agriculture land. So due to the both effect, one is storage of water, the stored water used for hydropower generation, then again after collecting back of that water to the river, again it is raised to some level and water is supplied to the canal, and due to both effect it is called as combined irrigation system, right? So as I told, it depends on both, right? So here perennial and hence water is diverted from the river to canal, right? So then we will see choice between the system, and even you can get from here why they made different classification: direct irrigation, storage irrigation, and combined irrigation. The direct irrigation scheme is adopted in circumstance where river is perennial. See here, direct irrigation scheme is adopted when a river is flowing throughout the year, a perennial, has normal flow throughout the irrigation season, never less at any time than the requirement of the field. So we require some amount of water throughout some cropping season, and water has to be available throughout the cropping season. Then we'll choose direct irrigation scheme. So one is river should be perennial, and main condition is uh, should not be never less at any time than the requirement of the field or crop, right? Then other on the contrary, the storage irrigation scheme, right? Next is storage irrigation system, right? In storage irrigation system is adopted when river flow is either not perennial or where flow is insufficient. So not perennial, when river is not perennial and where flow is insufficient during certain part of the crop season. So here we know some seasonal flow of water will be there in the river. So you can see many of the storage project is in seasonal flow rivers like Krishna River, Godavari River, Kaveri River, because in these rivers we are getting water in a seasonal base, right? So then a storage irrigation system is adopted. Next we'll go for in multiple river valley development, multi-purpose dams, right? You can see multi-purpose infrastructures. In multi-stage river valley development, combined storage cum diversion scheme is more useful. For example, a dam is constructed to generate the hydropower, right? So here it is, for dam is used for irrigation as well as water supply as well as hydroelectric hydropower generation. So then this combined system will be adopted, right? So next we'll go for lift irrigation, right? It is a irrigation. First one is flow irrigation, and in that we studied different types of flow irrigation. Next we'll go for lift irrigation. So right here water is lifted to higher level. So lift irrigation is practiced when water supply is at a low level. See here it is, lift irrigation is practiced when water supply is at low level, right? Water supply is at too low level to run the by gravity to the land. So here we are not getting water flow to the agricultural land by gravitational force. So that's what water has to be lifted. In such a circumstance, water is lifted up to in such a circumstance, water is lifted up by mechanical mean. So here it is mainly related to water we are lifting by use of mechanical energy, right? So mechanical mean. So irrigation from well, an example of lift irrigation. Irrigation from the wells are the example of lift irrigation, in which subsoil water is lifted up to the surface and is then conveyed to the agriculture field, right? If I show you one of the like a lift irrigation scheme in Karnataka, right? Here is the Krishna River, and it is a satellite map. You can see here it is water is taken away from the river by some channel creation. Here water is diverted, and by excavation water is diverted towards to this point. Then here it is a pump house. You can see it is zoomed area. here it is a pump house, right? So you can see it is a pump house and it is water is available at the river level, right? That arrangement is made, and here you can see power supply. From here power is supplied and it is a pump house and water is pumped, right? It is a pump house from here and water is pumped and it is taken to the higher elevation. If you see it is the top view, you won't see the vertical height. So it is from here to here, it is a vertical height is there around 10 meter, right? It is a hilly area, right? And then water is pumped up to this point. You can see it is zoomed point of this. It is what water is supplied in this, then it is carried through canal, right? It is called as lift irrigation, right? Even this lift irrigation is related to well irrigation. Here it is an open well and water is taken from open well to agricultural land by mean of, right, pumping, right? It is called as lift irrigation and it is applied for higher level. You can see it is a irrigation scheme. It is a minor irrigation or medium irrigation scheme. It is also called as lift irrigation, and even it is a individual lift irrigation in the agriculture land. Next we'll go for Bandar irrigation system, right? It is a Bandar Bandar irrigation system. Means it is like a small irrigation or Bandar irrigation is a minor irrigation system. Bandar irrigation is a minor irrigation system suitable for irrigating isolated areas up to 500 hectares. Bandar irrigation, Bandar is similar to weir, which is constructed across the small stream, raise the water level on the upstream side and divert to the water through canal. So you can see in the image, these are the small structures which are constructed to the small streams, and it will be constructed with the help of stone as well as brick, right? And you can see here it is entirely constructed with the RCC and it is comparatively very small. It's like a check dam, right? Constructed across the stream. Then we will see what are the advantages and disadvantages of Bandar irrigation. So one advantages of Bandar irrigation. First one is water of small stream can be utilized. The water of a small stream can be utilized for irrigation purpose, right? So then the cultivable area is generally close to the source, hence the transmission loss is less. And due to the less transmission loss, duty of the water is high. Means with the help of small availability of water, more area will be covered, right? You can call even duty means what? With the help of with the available water, how much area is covers under that irrigation, right? So that is what duty. So duty will be increased. Next, disadvantages of Bandar irrigation. Normally, the discharge capacity of the small stream is low. Means we can call it is what flow in the small stream is very low. Moreover, if Bandar irrigation is implemented on such streams, the people residing on the downstream side will not get water for their use. So here the flow in the stream is very less comparatively, and if you construct Bandar across the stream, then lower people means the downstream area people will be get affected and they may get a shortage of water. That is what side will not get water for their use. Next is the supply of water mainly depends on the rainfall. Means for this stream, supply of water is mainly depends on rainfall. So and in the drought situation, system is practically useless. If rainfall is good, then it is useful. Then it is practically useless, and it may creates the additional problems, right? So these are the advantages and disadvantages of Bandar irrigation. So we'll see the important questions. In December 2019 and January 20, they had a question for 6 marks with a neat sketch. The neat sketch explain Bandar irrigation. Bandar irrigation list the advantage and disadvantages, right? Which we discussed just before. It is what advantages and disadvantages, and with a small sketch, right? Roughly, you can make a river, right? For example, can draw small. Say here it is a river. Sorry, it is a stream, correct? So then just show small barrier, right? So small barrier. So then small barrier and small canal. You can supply like this canal that is distributed to the agricultural land, right? So when you can show like this, right, no problem. Then we have to explain advantages and disadvantages. Next question, and is for 6 marks. Next question is, with a neat sketch explain different system of irrigation. Different system of irrigation. So here you can explain flow irrigation and types of flow irrigation. Next is lift irrigation and Bandar irrigation, right? And even if you explain only lift irrigation and flow irrigation is enough based on the marks. Next, in June July 2019, question is, write a note on flow and lift irrigation. Flow and lift irrigation for 4 marks. Next is, on the same year, write a note on Bandar irrigation. It is a spelling mistake. It is not O, it is A. Bandar irrigation. It is for 3 marks. Next, in 2018 and 2019, what are the flow irrigation and lift irrigation? Flow irrigation and lift irrigation. Explain types of flow irrigation. Just you have to explain what you have to write what you mean by flow irrigation and lift irrigation and explain flow irrigation. Next is in June July 2016, with a neat sketch explain Bandar irrigation, list its advantage and disadvantage. Same as December 2019 and January 2020. Repeated questions. They are asking what do you mean by Bandar irrigation with a neat sketch and explain advantage and disadvantage. Yes. So for this I used Punima textbook, Irrigation and Water Power Engineering, Lakshmi publication. You can see here it is a textbook. It is authors are B.C. Punmiya and Dr. Pandey, B.L. Lal, Ashok Kumar Jain and Arun Kumar Jain. Right? It is a irrigation and water power engineering. Right? And parallelly used Dr. N. Balasubramanya textbook. Right? Thank you.